Look, it's 9:15, 18 past 9, and it's Wednesday, so you know what time it is?
It's time now for the latest news on what's hot and what's not in the world of technology with Matthew Dickerson on Tech Talk. Here on TCFM 88.9.
So it's time for Matthew Dickerson's Tech Talk. Hi Matthew, how are you?
I hope, good things, Megan. I hope you didn't put that song on for me just before I was coming in there. I hope that no link is there.
Of course I did, of course. Well, look, I watched you come in and I thought, thank goodness it wasn't yesterday. And you bringing in your tech stuff, the Tech
That's
Talk
right.
king coming in the rain probably wouldn't have been as good.
No, it doesn't go. Some of the stuff's getting better with waterproof, but it's not great in the water.
No, I wouldn't imagine. No, me, myself, I went for a walk outside to my car with my laptop and I didn't have it in a bag.
Yeah.
And so it got a little bit wet. So look, I'm learning by my mistakes, and you're clever enough not to do that, I'm
That's
sure.
right.
Now listen, talk to me. We've got a few topics to talk about today.
Sure.
First off, and something that interested me was the use of satellites. Now, are satellites the answer to Australia's bushfire problems?
They may well be. There's some really interesting research going on at the moment, and some experiments that have been done in California. Obviously, the time to get a bushfire is before it's a bushfire. When it's a little tiny fire, that's when you want to try and put it out, because once it's a raging bushfire, you see the water bombers come across and they drop tons of water on it, and it just looks like nothing. It looks like it didn't even make a little dent in the fire. So there's some really interesting work being done now, and one of the gentlemen leading this is a scientist that's been looking for supernovae billions of light years away from Earth. And the same technology that he's been trying to look out for those little tiny pinpricks of light that illustrate there's a supernova sitting there, that same technology is being used by satellites to look down at Earth, look down at Australia in particular, and look for little pinpricks of light that then might demonstrate that there is a bushfire. Just a lightning strike was there a minute ago, for example, and now if we can go and put it out now, that's the time to do it. So it's really interesting where there's a certain wavelength of light, the 39 micron wavelength. We can't see that, but that's what they've been using to try and find various supernovae, and that's the same spectrum, part of the light spectrum, to try and pick those bushfires. They say that most bushfires they can pick up within 1 minute of them starting. So you can imagine after a minute, it's not a bushfire.
No, exactly.
So they can go and get some water onto it or get some retardation onto it immediately and stop those bushfires. They experimented with it in California in the last bushfire season, and they were able to pick up about 850 small bushfire start and then get onto them straight away.
Oh, so it really did
It has started
prevention
working.
management.
Yeah, that's right. And so they're working on that for Australia now. The main thing is to get the satellites up in place. They'll have them up by the year 2022, so sometime next year, and then be able to start to spot those bushfires. So that would be fantastic, because with climate change, we'll have bushfires that are worse, we'll have them more often, they'll be more intense. So if we can get onto them before they start, what a great use of technology.
Absolutely, and I think that's really good going on what we've learned so far over the last, even year with bushfires in Australia. That is something that I think would be really beneficial to us for, like I said, prevention management. Get on top of it before it's an issue. Now listen, this is another topic. We all know that you're an electric vehicle king, let's just say. So talk to me a little bit about this. There's a new electric vehicle beating out Tesla.
Yeah.
Talk to me about this.
So Tesla sales have been going really well this year. About 35,000 Model 3 Teslas alone have been sold in this year, so in the first 2 months of this year. So pundits around the world are saying, well, that's fantastic. But there's there's a company in China that makes a little EV. It's called a Wuling. Now it's selling for 5,700 Aussie dollars, so fairly cheap. They've sold 56,000 of those so far in the first 2 months. Now it is being sold just in China, which is a bit different to Tesla, which is sold worldwide, but it's very much particular for the Chinese market. It's small, so you can get around some of the tight streets you've got there with all the congestion in China. You've got 4 people can fit in the car. It's got a 170 kilometre range, so not a huge range, but again, it's designed for that small little commute. You drive into where you've got to go to work, you drive home from there, you might charge up every couple of days. So it's a great little addition. They're not bringing these out across the world yet because they're so busy trying to manufacture them in China. But it just goes to show, when you start to build something particularly for your market, knowing what your market is, people want cheap cars, they want a small commute. It's actually quite skinny for a car, so you can squeeze into little spots where you might be able to normally squeeze.
Kind of sounds like the perfect car for my grandmother.
Right.
She needs a little car. Sorry, keep
going.
going.
It's only small in terms of its weight. It's 660 kilograms, but it will still fit those 4 people in there. But again, not designed to be out cruising the highways. It's only got a top speed of 100 kilometres an hour. So it's not going to be out there driving to go to Sydney easily.
You probably frustrate a lot of people out on the highways,
right,
especially between here and say Orange. I think,
where there's 110k limit from here to Wellington, for example. But again, it's interesting to see the sales quantity they're getting out of this new little car. It's actually a joint venture between a Chinese car manufacturing company and General Motors in America, and they put their expertise together to come up with this, which they say is solving a specific problem for that small commute, convenience at a cheap price. So I don't know if we'll see them in Australia at some stage in the near future, but if you lived in Sydney, it'd be a perfect little commute car.
Absolutely. Oh, honestly, in all honesty, I don't know if I would want to be driving if I lived in Sydney. I would definitely want to have a really good job where I could afford to pay cabs, maybe even a limo. Wouldn't that be good? I would not be driving in Sydney. I think we have time for one more question. Talk to me about this. Big whoops, Facebook, Instagram and WhatsApp went down. They had a power outage. Now tell me, this is interesting, how did they inform the public that there was an outage?
Yeah, I'm sure that they hated doing this, but there was an outage early Saturday morning. If you happen to be on some of those social media channels, around about 4:30 a.m. on Saturday morning.
No, I wouldn't have been.
About an hour and a half they were down for, and it was a bit more than a power outage. There was some pretty severe issues in terms of the actual data getting out. So all their servers were running, but just couldn't get it out to the outside world. So if you tried to log on to Facebook, you would have just received nothing. But they needed to inform the world, and obviously they normally inform the world via their own channels.
Better catch-22 then.
Yeah, that's right. They had to jump onto Twitter and inform the world that it was back up and running again. They didn't tell the people across the world it was down. They just told people, we're back up and running now, everything's okay. Sorry about the bit of an outage. And I'm sure the executives of Twitter are sitting there having a good chuckle with themselves, saying they had to revert to Twitter when their social media channels didn't work.
I bet they're sitting there going, oh, plebs, look at this.
It'd be like DCFM being out and going to another radio station and announcing to the world, sorry, we're out at the moment, can you please tune into another radio station?
Tail would be between our legs. We'd be knocking on the door and saying, please help. That's that sounds like a big whoops, let's just say.
Right.
Thank you so much for coming in and talking to me. Like, you and I love to chat. And we've gone over time, but that's okay. What we have to chat about is valuable and interesting. It is currently 9:25 here at DCFM 88.9.